Welcome to our deep dive today. We're wrapping up the year, and businesses are already looking ahead to 2025. Cybersecurity, it's always top of mind.
Yeah, always a concern.
Right, for anyone running a business,
Absolutely.
especially in the digital world,
For sure.
we're going to be taking a look at the Kaseya Cybersecurity Survey Report 2024.
Okay.
It gives us some fascinating insights into what's coming up on the threat landscape,
Yes, definitely a lot of good information in there.
for sure. So let's just jump right into it. For those of you who may be new to cybersecurity, what are some of the basics that you think people really need to know?
So I would say the first thing to understand is that the landscape is changing so rapidly.
Right.
And one of the things that we're seeing that's really interesting is that AI, artificial intelligence, is being increasingly used in cyber attacks.
AI. That sounds pretty futuristic. I mean, are we talking like robots hacking into computers?
Not quite robots, but think about it this way. Those phishing attacks.
Yeah, those emails that try to trick you.
Exactly. So AI can actually make these attacks really convincing
Huh.
by, analyzing tons of data to personalize those messages
Okay.
and even mimic someone's writing style. So they're even harder to spot.
So even for somebody who's maybe pretty tech savvy, they might still fall for this.
Absolutely. So it's getting much more sophisticated.
Okay, so AI is kind of like making the bad guys even sneakier.
Exactly.
What about ransomware? Is that still a big concern?
Definitely, ransomware attacks are still a major threat. And it's interesting because even though a lot of IT professionals feel confident in their existing defenses, 36% still think that a ransomware attack is likely to hit them in the next 12 months.
36%. That's a pretty significant number.
Yeah, it is.
So what can companies be doing about this?
Well, one of the most effective ways to combat this is security awareness training.
Oh.
Think of it as like a human firewall.
Human firewall. I like that.
Right. Training your employees to recognize and avoid those phishing emails and other social engineering tactics.
Because as you said, the report shows that 43% of businesses consider a phishing attack at least somewhat likely.
Yeah, and that's a big number.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's not just about having the latest software. It's really about educating your team.
Exactly. It's about the people.
And it makes sense then that we're seeing such a big increase in cyber insurance.
Huge increase. In 2023, only 27% of businesses had cyber insurance, and now that number has jumped to 61%.
Wow, that is a huge jump.
It is.
I mean, it's kind of like any other form of business insurance.
Absolutely.
You're protecting yourself against a potential disaster.
Right. And in today's world, a cyber attack can be just as damaging as a fire or a natural disaster.
For sure. So we covered some of the fundamentals here. AI-powered attacks, ransomware, the importance of training your team, and the rise of cyber insurance.
Yeah. And it's a lot to think about.
It is. But this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
For sure.
So for those of you who are ready to dive a little bit deeper with us, we're going to move on to part 2
Great.
of our deep dive.
All right. Sounds good.
So we just got done talking about some of the cybersecurity basics, but now let's dive into some of the more advanced strategies that businesses are considering as we head into 2025.
Okay.
This cybersecurity landscape is always changing. So what are some of the new concerns that you're seeing out there?
So one of the interesting things is that, we're seeing a shift in how businesses perceive threats.
Okay.
So in the past, the biggest concerns were always those more traditional areas like email and endpoint security. But now human error is actually a top concern.
That makes sense. I mean, we're just talking about how, social engineering plays such a big role in attacks like phishing.
Right.
And people might accidentally click on a bad link or give away information without even realizing it.
Absolutely. And that's why the security awareness training is becoming so much more vital.
Right.
It's not just about protecting those systems, but it's about making sure that your people are really your strongest line of defense.
Yeah. And the report highlights some of the top security management concerns that businesses are anticipating.
Yeah.
And we're talking about things like budget limitations, lack of IT, and security skills, even just the struggle to build a strong security culture within the company.
Yeah, those are all very real hurdles, especially I think for smaller businesses
Yeah.
that maybe don't have those dedicated IT teams or, huge budgets to throw at this problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
But here's what I found interesting in the report. Even with all of these challenges, we're seeing a change in how businesses are investing in security.
Yeah.
They're looking at more proactive solutions.
Absolutely.
It's not just about reacting to attacks anymore. It's about finding and fixing weaknesses
Exactly.
before the bad guys even get there.
It's really a shift in that mindset.
Yeah. So what are some of these proactive solutions that you're seeing businesses turn to? How do you even go about proactively looking for these security gaps?
Well, there are some really innovative tools that are out there right now. And One of the most effective ways, I think, to find vulnerabilities is to actually simulate a real attack.
Oh, wow.
So imagine if you had a team of ethical hackers
Okay.
who are trying to break into your
Oh my
systems
God.
and find those weak points in your defenses.
That's a little scary.
It is, but it's really effective
Okay.
because you're essentially finding those holes in the armor before the bad guys can.
Right. So you're kind of controlling it.
Exactly. And then there are other tools that are out there that you can use that act like security inspectors. So they're
Right.
constantly scanning your systems
Oh.
for any known weaknesses that hackers could target.
So it's really about staying ahead of the game.
It really is.
Okay. So I'm starting to see how these proactive approaches can make a real difference.
Yeah.
But, for a business leader who's already juggling a million different things,
Yeah.
how do they even prioritize these initiatives?
Well, you're right. It can be a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the best way to think about it is, you've got your people,
Yeah.
you've got your technology, and then you have this whole world of information out there. And that's really where things can get tricky.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay.
People first, right?
Right.
We talked about training. But what else can businesses do to really address that human element?
So there are some platforms now that are taking that security awareness training to a whole new level.
Okay.
So you can actually send simulated phishing emails to your employees.
What?
So these are, realistic looking messages
Oh, wow.
that really test their ability to spot those red flags.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it's kind of like a fire drill,
Yeah,
but for cyber attacks.
exactly. And it's not just about teaching them what to look out for, but
Yeah.
you're really putting their skills to the test in a
Yeah.
safe environment.
Exactly.
And then on the technology
Be
side,
fine.
it's not just about having those latest and greatest tools. It's about making sure that they're being used effectively,
Uh-huh.
that they're configured correctly.
Right, because even the most sophisticated security software isn't going to help if it's not set up right,
Exactly.
or if your team doesn't know how to use it.
And this is where that skills gap comes in.
Yeah.
Businesses need people who understand how to manage and maintain these complex systems.
So we've got our people trained.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our technology in place.
Right.
But you mentioned this world of information out there.
Yes.
What makes that such a challenge for businesses?
Well, think about all of the data that's out there about your company and your employees.
Yeah.
Login credentials,
Mhm.
credit card numbers, company secrets.
Right.
All of this information can end up on the dark web.
Oh, gosh.
And that's where cybercriminals buy and sell this valuable data.
So there's like an underground market for this stuff.
There is.
That's scary. How do you even protect yourself from something like that?
Well, there are specialized services that can monitor the dark web for you. So imagine having a digital detective that's constantly scanning those hidden corners of the internet,
Yeah.
looking for any mention of your company or your employees' information.
So if anything suspicious comes up, they let you know.
Exactly. They can alert you and give you time to take action.
So like a private investigator, but for the digital world.
Exact.
Okay, and then of course there's this whole issue of these AI-powered attacks
Yes.
that are becoming so difficult to defend against.
It is a challenge. And those traditional security tools.
Right, because the bad guys are using AI to create attacks
Hmm.
that are so sophisticated and can slip past those conventional defenses.
Exactly.
So they're kind of always one step ahead.
They are getting very clever. But the good news is that the good guys are using AI too.
Okay.
So there are these advanced email security solutions now
Okay.
that can use AI to detect and block even the most sophisticated phishing attempts.
So they can spot things that a human might miss.
Exact.
Ah, that's interesting.
And these solutions are constantly learning and adapting. Uh-huh.
So they can provide a much higher level of protection.
Wow. So it's like an AI arms race,
Kind of.
but for cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is a lot to take in. We've talked about training, we've talked about proactive security measures, having the right tools in place, and keeping a close eye on what's happening out there in the digital world.
And it is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is to really approach cybersecurity strategically.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we're going to be talking about in the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned. We're about to get into how you build your cybersecurity. A game.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So welcome back to our deep dive into cybersecurity preparedness for 2025. We've covered a lot of ground here, from AI-powered attacks to the importance of those proactive security measures.
Yeah. A lot to digest.
But now let's get down to, the brass tacks here.
That
How
is
do you
so good.
actually put all of this together?
Right. How do you create a cybersecurity strategy that is going to be effective in this ever-changing landscape.
It's one thing to know about all the threats and the solutions out there.
Right. But how do you actually build a truly robust defense?
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with something like this?
So I think it helps to think about it like building a house.
Okay.
You need a strong foundation.
Okay.
You need solid walls.
Uh-huh.
You need a roof that doesn't leak.
Okay. I like that analogy.
So
let's break it down. What are those foundational elements of a good cybersecurity strategy?
So the first thing is really understanding your risks.
Yeah.
What kind of data do you have?
Uh-huh.
What are your most critical systems?
Okay.
And where are your vulnerabilities?
Makes sense.
Yeah,
You can't build a strong defense if you don't even know what you're defending.
exactly.
It's like assessing the lay of the land before you start building.
Right. And once you understand those risks,
Okay.
then you can start putting those right safeguards in place.
Okay.
And this is where those proactive solutions that we were talking about come in.
Uh-huh.
You need to have tools and processes that are constantly monitoring for threats, identifying vulnerabilities, and responding quickly to any incidents that might occur.
So it's not just a static set of defenses. It's got to be dynamic.
It has to be. It has to adapt to that changing threat landscape.
Which brings us to, I think, another really crucial element.
Yeah.
Your people.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with the best technology in the world, you're still vulnerable if your employees are not cyber aware.
Right.
And that's why that security awareness training is so important.
Like building that human firewall we were talking about.
It is. And it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
You need to provide that ongoing training to keep your employees up to date on the latest threats.
Because the bad guys are always coming up with new tricks.
Always.
All right, so we've got the risk assessment.
Yes.
We've got the proactive security measures.
Right.
We've got the ongoing employee training.
Right.
Those are some pretty solid walls for our cybersecurity house.
They are.
What about the roof?
The roof, that's where incident response planning comes in. So no matter how strong your defenses are, there's always a chance that something could slip through the cracks.
Uh-huh.
So you need to have a plan in place for how you're going to respond if and when an incident occurs.
So it's not just about preventing those attacks. It's also knowing how to handle them if they do happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A good incident response plan will help you contain that damage, recover quickly, and minimize the impact on your business.
So we've got our foundation.
Yes.
We've got our walls.
Uh-huh.
We've got our roof.
Right.
Anything else we need to consider when building this cybersecurity house?
Don't forget about the windows and doors.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So think about it.
Okay.
Your windows and doors are the entry points to your house.
Yeah.
And in the digital world, those entry points are things like email, the web, your cloud applications.
Right.
So you need to make sure that those entry points are secure.
So it's not just about protecting the whole network.
Uh-huh.
It's also about protecting those specific channels where information flows in and out of the organization.
Right.
Okay.
So that's where solutions like, advanced email security and secure web gateways come in.
Okay.
They act as filters, blocking that malicious content and protecting your systems from attacks.
It's like having a security guard at each door.
Exactly.
Checking IDs, making sure that only authorized personnel are allowed in.
Right?
Okay. So let's recap. We talked about risk assessment,
Yeah.
proactive security, ongoing training,
Uh-huh.
incident response planning,
Right.
and securing those key entry points.
Right.
Those are some pretty solid building blocks for a strong cybersecurity strategy.
They are, but remember, it's not just about putting these pieces in place.
Right.
It's about making sure that they're all working together seamlessly.
So it's got to be a holistic approach.
It does.
Where everything is integrated.
Yes.
And it all aligns with your business goals.
Exactly.
So this isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing.
No, it's not.
Cybersecurity is an ongoing process.
It is. The threat landscape is constantly changing, so your security strategy needs to be evolving along with it.
So you've got to be constantly evaluating your defenses,
Yes.
looking for ways to improve,
Uh-huh.
staying informed about the latest threats.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It can be, but it's essential.
Yeah.
The stakes are too high to ignore cybersecurity.
Yeah. And the good news is there are a lot of resources available out there to
A
help
lot of resources.
for businesses of all sizes to help them build strong defenses.
Yeah. And there are experts out there who can really help guide you through this process.
Yeah. And I think that's something really important for people to keep in mind
For sure.
as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
Cybersecurity is not just an IT issue.
Well,
It's a business issue.
it is. It's about protecting your data. your
Yeah.
reputation, your bottom line.
And it requires a proactive and comprehensive approach.
It does.
So by taking the steps that we've talked about today, you can really build a strong defense that will help you navigate all the challenges of the digital world and thrive in the years to come.
For sure.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your expertise.
That's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and helpful. And remember, in the world of cybersecurity, knowledge is power. So stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe.